Many have voiced their concern, their disbelief, their hurt, and everything in between when it comes to the sequel trilogy. What if I told you that a simple little film series about cars and ridiculous spectacle, and a show about rich white dudes took more care with real tragedy behind the scenes, offering Lucasfilm and the behemoth behind it a true lesson in how to adapt a franchise? With each passing day, we near closer to Star Wars Celebration, and more importantly, Episode 9. Lucasfilm, if nothing else, has benefited from the negativity around Captain Marvel, the Fox merger, and anticipation for Avengers Endgame, while suppressing the trailer for Episode 9, not even risking a 30-second Super Bowl ad for $5 million. Instead, opting for the free venue of Star Wars Celebration to reveal it. It seems to be an attempt to make the heart grow fonder. I see it as either a sign from Lucasfilm and Disney that says they're scared to spend a dime after the bomb that was Solo, even with 100 million people seeing it, or an indication at how confident they are at the reception of the trailer and assume more invested fans will be covering it on YouTube and social media, despite being a smaller venue than the Super Bowl. It will be very interesting once we get to April 11th, as the High Council and other elite Fandom Menace channels, and proper Jeremy, will be at ground zero for what's to come, including an appearance by Kathleen Kennedy. For a lot of us, the anticipation, if you call it that, is out of sheer fascination as to how J.J. Abrams can salvage the general appeal and intrigue the fans had leaving The Force Awakens that gave The Last Jedi so much hype. Even for those of us that complained about Rey's Mary Sue status, we withdrew those thoughts knowing there were 2 more films to explore the reason she was so powerful. The direction Lucasfilm and Disney have chosen to steer Star Wars in has garnered lukewarm interest, if any, no pun intended. A lot of us are just ready for it to end so we can get ready for the Benioff and Weiss trilogy, which will only benefit from Game of Thrones' final season, the first episode airing a day before the celebration is over. And of course, The Mandalorian from Jon Favreau. Something that doesn't aid Episode 9 is it's being dubbed the end of the Skywalker saga. Until the buyout, Star Wars was always about the Skywalkers or the wars they affected, be it the first 2 trilogies, or the expanded material, with rare stories like the Old Republic and Darth Bane making it outside the Skywalkers. Luke Skywalker was a character that grew from a naive farm boy to a monastic warrior, determined to save his friends and eventually his father. He was a character who grew with those who first saw his progression and was passed down from them to their children, a modern mythological figure to base your own character on, like George intended, a new myth for a new age in which to live by. For those like myself, either finding Star Wars as a new universe or yearning for an expansion to one already inherited, we saw the tragedy of a gifted boy born a slave, twisted and manipulated by his love for his bride, wielded as a vessel to destroy his brotherhood from within, and cursed to live with a karmic punishment. But not just the blood of his sacred order stained his hands, but also the loss of his wife and child as well, he assumed. These were stories that united us, bridged social divides, inspired us to create, to imagine. Stories that had a message and filled our hearts when we'd otherwise feel alone. The heart of those stories was always rooted in the Skywalker name. The Last Jedi, and now this supposed end to the Skywalker saga, shows us how much Disney doesn't understand the galaxy far, far away. By Vader rising through the Jedi, they see the system as inherently flawed, and their demise a sort of poetic justice. Yet peace was kept for 1,000 years by the Jedi, and they only fell when abandoning their strict yet purposeful code. The transgressions won't end there, though, with Episode 9. We heard almost immediately after the death of Carrie Fisher that they would not CGI Leia, nor would they stand in or recast her. I remember the first time I saw Leia Poppins on screen after what was sold as an obvious ousting of a character no longer feasible, and was in disbelief. They end up killing 2 of the 3 main legacy characters in the story, and leave the one whose actress literally died before release. It was morbid, to say the least. When Lucasfilm fired Colin Trevorrow, they moved the release back 7 months to accommodate J.J. Abrams, but when Leia died, they stuck to the final product, more than a year available to amend the story. What if they learned from one of the most simple franchises, The Fast and the Furious? When Paul Walker died in 2013 with the 7th film only half finished, they delayed filming for about 5 months. Months before resuming shooting the film with the adapted script, they informed the fans that Walker's character would be retired, not killed. Think about how the fans appreciated the work of the writers, along with Walker's brothers, to send the franchise-spanning character out on a happy ending instead of killing him in a simple stroke. The film was rewarded for its delicate care following Paul Walker's death, and even evoked emotion from me, I not being a fan of the series by any stretch. While the Fast and Furious series has entertained millions and become a billion-dollar franchise, most can agree, aside from the numbers at the box office and some high-profile cast members, the films themselves won't be remembered or have an impact on society close to Star Wars. To add to that, the character of Leia rivals and predates classic feminist icons in film like Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor. Disney hasn't been subtle both in its merchandising and from its own president saying that women are an important part of Star Wars going forward. If that's the case, why disservice such an iconic female role, a virtual goddess or Madonna of reverence in sci-fi? In the 80s hit Dallas, the family patriarch Jock Ewing was diagnosed with plasma-based cancer, had his condition erode while filming the 4th season, and died during its airing. While Star Wars writers didn't have a diagnosis to be cognizant of with Leia, they again had a year. The argument that Ryan finished his movie and wasn't responsible just doesn't cut it for me. The reason being, he was given an announced trilogy at least a month before the release of The Last Jedi. It's obvious that an announcement like that had Bob Iger or Alan Horn's approval and months of planning before the public was informed. If Ryan were leaving Lucasfilm after the film's release, I'd give him a pass. But with his being deeply entrenched at Lucasfilm, I see it as a different story altogether. This brings me to the leaks I've recently discovered from Star Wars. Though unconfirmed, multiple leaks have indicated multiple flashbacks, especially with Leia, who supposedly isn't even in the film much. The film, and their refusal to recast or use CGI like in Rogue One, is having to work a plot around 5-year-old clips unused in The Force Awakens. Despite supposedly only being in the film for a short time, this clearly hinders the plot, as any dialogue has to have the script mold around it. And Leia is an important character, not only as a legacy character, but as the top-ranking official for the Resistance. The Republic's capital system has been destroyed, and the Resistance is left alone by assumed allies to fend for themselves. I'm surprised more fans aren't outraged at Disney. They were so concerned with budget and their timetable, they couldn't remove her once she was blasted into space and retooled the script. Instead, they figuratively, if not literally, parade around a husk of an inspirational female lead to attract sales, fake her death, and do nothing with her aside from a nostalgic gimmick with her and Luke. They've decimated the Resistance to about 20 people. They don't have the luxury of hiding her in a secluded position of power, believably, while they try to stay a step ahead of the First Order. If Disney has the fortitude to kill her character off, as this is the end of the Skywalkers, the only believable person that has any emotion invested to warrant a fatal blow is Kylo. Given the direction of the first 2 films, I don't think any footage is shot for that possibility. And if you shoot her in her spaceship unexpectedly, we expect the Force to cocoon her now. I would feel sorry for JJ having to follow up The Last Jedi. We heard reports with Simon Pegg saying that it wasn't the direction he had planned for Star Wars, but he was a producer on The Last Jedi, said he wished he would have directed it, and has said that the backlash is because fans have a problem with women. The progression, or really regression, and stagnant state of Leia's character is just a microcosm of the debacle that is the sequel trilogy.
If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. If you'd like to support this channel, consider becoming a patron or buying store merch from the Teespring store. Don't forget to check out the growing list of friends in the Fandom Collective in the description below, and follow me on Twitter @AngusReviews. See you there.